want to save some money? Let's all sit down and say, why do we have 127 superintendents for 180,000 kids in K through 12? When the state, and we're ranked 38, somewhere around 38th in the nation on quality. And the state of Florida has 2.8 million kids with 64 superintendents. We spend 4.5% of the $2 billion we spend on education, on administration. The rest of the country spends 2%. Why? I will say one thing. We have a lot of superintendents and we have a lot of deputy superintendents or assistant superintendents, and they're very, very well paid. The union collects a whole lot of money in union dues, and they spend it in political campaigns, and I can vouch that they spend a ton against me. They spend a ton against me. Both the teachers' unions and the public unions. It was great to wake up on Wednesday morning and see they wasted all that money. But our kids aren't getting the quality education in the classroom. And our teachers have to dig in their pockets on their poorly paid salaries, dig in their pockets and have to provide supplies or clothing or food for the children. That's who we are in Maine. But we are generous because in 2011, on January 5th, 2011, Maine was the #1 welfare state in America. And with all the hard work we've done and all the complaining and all the nasty articles that were written by these lovely people in front, we are now #3 in the nation. We've gone from #1 to #3. We've gone from $10,000 per person on welfare to $6,000 per person on welfare. And to get to the middle of the pack, we got to spend around $3,500. It's that simple. With that, I'm going to shut up and I'll have Adrian help me with questions.
Thank you very much, Governor. I do need to introduce a very special guest that we have here with us tonight, and that is the First Lady of the State of Maine, Ann LePage. She's a real boss, I'll tell you that.
She jumps out of perfectly good planes.
This first question comes from Donna DeWitt from Lisbon. She's got a couple of questions. How will the loss of state income tax be made up? If you raise sales tax, will that be enough? And will our property taxes go up?
Okay, #1, the property taxes will go up no more than $62 million. Or they shouldn't, because if they do go up more than that, it's not because of the income tax, because that's all that goes to the property tax. Let me tell you this, I was the mayor of Waterville. When I was the mayor of Waterville, I took over the taxes with 27.9 mils. I left 8 years later, they're 21 mils. I've only been gone 5 years and they're back up to 29 mils. It's all a matter about management. It's simply about management. Now, I will defend Waterville in one respect. The community has done a marvelous job in maintaining the municipal side of the budget. Where Maine is astray is in education. And we need to fix our education system, and it's only because we're very, very top-heavy. So that's the biggest influence on the property tax. How we make up the difference is, like I said, we had 36 million people visit Maine. The #1 state for tourism in America is the state of South Carolina. They get 40 million people a year. We get 36 million, 33 in 3 months. I think we got room to bring in more visitors in the fall and then in winter. So I think we can do a lot there. The other thing we do is by lowering the corporate income tax. I don't plan to eliminate it, but I plan to lower it. Right now, 45th highest corporate tax in America. I believe if we lower that to 6.75% from 8.93%, we drop to 17. And then we become competitive with New England and the rest of the country. Already we're negotiating with some big companies as I speak to you, big companies that will be coming to Maine hopefully this year or early next year. We've been working on some of them for the 4 years I've been here. We've had Sun Life of Canada come in, they brought in a couple hundred jobs in southern Maine. They're paying between $60,000 and $100,000 a year. We brought some people in just recently into Belfast. They're bringing in $50,000 level jobs. So while you're not going to become William Gates, Bill Gates, you are going to make a good living. So I think that there's all kinds of opportunities, but we need to become more competitive. And I mean more competitive that we at least make one of the states that they're willing to look at. When companies look to go move to grow a company, to expand, they look to there's groups, there's organizations that help them. And they'll say, what are the best states to go to? We're not in the top 10. We're in the bottom 10. We need to be in the middle of the pack. And I will tell you another place that is we don't spend any time trying to get those folks to put their businesses in Maine. In the summer months, we are the #1 state in America with second home ownership from around the nation. And some of these folks are very wealthy. I know one gentleman who comes to Maine for 3 weeks a year. And his property taxes on the summer home are $57,000 a year. And you see his shows on TV every day. He's a producer. I know several others, Duke Energy CEO, I know many very wealthy people that come to Maine, businesses, lawyers, doctors, actresses, actors that come to Maine, and we can convince them to invest in Maine. So there's a lot of things we can do. We got to grow. We got to move forward. As I said earlier, get off that three-legged stool and get on a bike and start pedaling forward.
Eileen Hyder, where are you? Where are you from? Turner.
I thank you for answering what was going on in the legislature, because I'm very, very upset with the legislature. I guess I don't understand. My big thing is I don't understand why. Why are they not backing your plan? I totally understand the plan, and I'm not that smart, but I understand it. And I can look at that chart and say New Hampshire 0, and New Hampshire's growing in businesses.
Yeah.
People want to move there. Their median home prices are $300,000. And I just don't understand what can I do about it.
Yeah, it's not just New Hampshire. It's New Hampshire, Florida, Texas, South Dakota, Wyoming. I mean, these are all states. Wyoming's got $19 billion in the bank. No income tax. The point is, you got to want it. Maine has been under a one-party management for about 50 years. That's why I'm not very popular with Democrats. And I'm a little blunt. The point being, there are two ways to look at an economy. One is you look at it from a growth perspective, and the other, you look at it from the perspective of redistribution. The people in Augusta, particularly in the Democratic Party, believe in the redistribution of wealth. And if this was Hollywood, Beverly Hills, I would agree with them. I wouldn't mind taking all that Tinseltown money and redistributing it to me and my wife and my friends, because there are millions of dollars there. But what they don't want to face and understand is very simply this. Those who have protected by going to other states for 6 months and a day. And how many in this room know someone that leaves here and protects their assets. They're a resident of another state to protect their assets. That's my point. And so the people that are left here are those collecting, either living on Social Security, fixed income. They don't have the wherewithal to move away, and we don't have the capital base to grow. I had a gentleman tell me, you pass your budget, I'll be back by July 1. He moved away because when he sold his business, he had to pay the state $16 million in income tax. That's a lot of money. So the point I'm trying to make here is very simply this. Let people keep their money. Let's not tax them to death. They may stay here. The problem with people going for 6 months and a day is they take their assets with them. So we lose not only the brain power, the wisdom that they've accumulated in generating their wealth, but we also lose them and many of their family members. And the biggest thing is we lose the money they have. Because if they leave it here, it's going to continue to be taxed, so they take it and go someplace else. We've averaged, on an annual basis, we average about $12 million a year of hard assets. Hard assets, $12 million a year. That's $120 million a decade. We lose of hard assets never to come back here. As people leave, take their money, come back and visit, we might get a little bit. But they go and they have to get a doctor in a different place, they've got to get a dentist in a different place, they've got to get a financial advisor in a different place, and if they don't, Maine Revenue Service will go tax them. So they do. That's the problem.
Next question. This woman wants me to read it. She's from Litchfield. How do you prioritize which state-funded programs will continue to receive funding if millions is not collected, specifically funding for adults with mental disabilities?
Okay. I can tell you right now that, in fact, I was with Dan Wathen this morning, who was the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and now he's an attorney who is in charge of the consent decree for the state of Maine. We've been under a consent decree for a couple of decades for the mentally ill because we ran away from it 25 years ago. What we do is we prioritize. My priorities, as I said earlier, was elderly, nursing homes, assisted living, disability, and mental illness. Those are my top priorities. Low on my priority list, which have been put back into the budget, are people 19 to 50 who are collected from the state. They're called childless adults. They're 19 to 50, and this is the sad thing. 62% of them are men. Half of them are deadbeats. I called one last week. He was working under the table because he's avoiding paying child support. He did some work for a gentleman, and he got paid $10,000. The gentleman was closing on the house, and he says, well, I want my money in cash. He said, you can't have it in cash. The lawyer said, you got to take a check. He took a check, ran to the bank. Just so happens the banker's a friend of mine. He called me up. He's going to be a guest of the state for a while. So that's how you catch it.
Gregory Dan, where are you? Gregory Dan?
Right here.
Perfect. Where are you from?
Lisbon. My mother lived to the age of 93, and she never filed income tax for the last 20 years of her life because she made so little. All her income was Social Security. If you give an income tax break for someone making just Social Security under $25,000, that's the IRS rule, there'll be no benefit to them.
This is what we've done in our plan so that you understand what we did. If you're on a fixed income, for instance, you get Social Security and that's all you have, then you get a sales tax credit. we will refund you a certain amount of the money based on what the income you have. We know you don't pay income tax, but you do pay sales tax, so we're going to refund you money for your income tax. If she lives in a home, if you live in a home and you own it and you pay property taxes, we have what is called a property fairness tax credit, which means that whatever your income is, you'll never pay more than 6% of that income for property taxes. So we refund property taxes to you. For somebody that, I know somebody that they've been in the home for 50 years, the house is worth $300,000 or $400,000, they make $30,000. Most they ever pay their income tax, for their property tax would be $1,500. So that's how we take care of that. Because that property, the tax on that property is like $8,000. So that's how we do it. We understand people on fixed incomes. There's a formula, like at the state right now, there's a formula that if you pay, if you buy on the internet, which we're not able to collect sales tax for the most part, the state charges you a certain percentage. I think it's 0.008 or 1%. And you pay that in. We would do just the opposite and give it back to you. A person on $28,900 would get back roughly $250 in sales tax and upwards of $1,500 in property taxes. We're not paying. Those for elderly. Military, no, we would eliminate the pensions immediately. And the only reason I did the military immediately was simply that next year, in 2016, is going to be a big downsizing, and I want it to be one of those 10 states that did not charge income tax on pensions so we could get our fair share of those 40 to 45-year-olds. Because we are the oldest state in America. I'm trying to lower the age. The other thing that my plan called for is for students in the state of Maine, or people who move to the state of Maine with student loans, get an interest-free loan from the state of Maine, and if you work in the state of Maine, your employer pays income tax. If they pay your student loan, we give them credit on their income tax for the amount they pay. Because what do I want to do? I want to lower the age from 44. People ask me, what do you consider being a successful governor? To me, it's not by saying no income tax. It's about having the age of the population around 35 instead of 45. It's about having about 250,000 kids in our K through 12. And it's about having a per capita income of $60,000 a year for an average family, for a family without income tax. That I would think we're moving ahead. Right now, it's $41,000. Age is 44 years. And we got 180,000 kids, and it's been going down for 20 years.
Next question comes from Lorraine McLaughlin from Portland. What steps are being taken to stop the flow of people coming to Maine just to take advantage of our welfare and Maine Care benefits?
Well, I can assure, we've done several things. 60-month limitation on benefits. We make them go to work now, or volunteer, or they either got to go to work, go to school, or volunteer 20 hours a week. We put a picture on their EBT cards. We had several other things that we had planned to do, which the Democrats took out in the budget, and they put the money all back in, so that we have a wait list now. And one senator told me, I said, so how do you justify giving money to illegal aliens and put a waiting list for elderly people who earn and deserve the services? And the response was, well, chip away at the waiting list. Chip away. Think about that. Chip away at the waiting list. So your life is worth like a chip. You can't really see that. It's very insulting. Yes, next.
Okay, this one isn't necessarily a question, it's more of a comment from Andre Bergeron from Lewiston. We need more compromising, more negotiating, less.
This is what we need. I am willing to compromise every day on good public policy. On good public policy, I will compromise all the time, and I work very hard at compromising. For instance, I put a budget in at 5.75. I said, you know, I'll settle for 6.5 if you give me a constitutional amendment. And they said no. Now let me tell you why the constitutional amendment is important. Only for one reason. If you're going to pay the tax in, you should have a say. And right now they're saying, no, you can't have a say. I think that's not the democratic way. So what I'm going to do is when they go home, the press is going to like this. I got a hot tip for you. The press, when they all go home, I'm part of the Secretary of State, and the governor of the state of Maine is going to lead a people's referendum to lower the income tax to 5.75%.
I think he actually wanted to clarify something here, but it was another question we had. Will you veto any bill that does not remove Maine's income tax or reduce it?
Like I just said, I'm going to lead the effort to reduce the income tax 5.75%. And the reason I'm doing that, folks, is because I believe that we need to lower the income tax. I am a firm believer that too much money hides too many deficiencies. You only get really efficient when you have to worry about it. Believe me, I've done a lot of workouts. You stay up night figuring how you're going to make payroll, and it's funny how the harder I work, the luckier those companies got. So I really truly believe that we need to get the income tax down. I would love to tell you that I can lead an effort to eliminate, to have a constitutional amendment to eliminate the income tax, but I can't by Constitution. It has to go through the Senate, and they know it. And not the Senate, the legislature. Legislature has to approve it so we can get on the ballot, so we can have a constitutional amendment. And folks, you elect them, and they're saying no to it. So all my recommendation to you is remember that in November of 2016. Because in 2016, the people of the state of Maine, and believe me, as long as I'm governor, I'll be reminding you at least twice a week that we have to get rid of the income tax or get rid of the bums that don't want you to have a say.
Booklet that you do have a contact your legislator sheet, so just look in that booklet and you can contact them.
I got carried away. I'd like to finish the rest of that question. The answer to the question is, I've already made the decision that because the Democrats refuse to have the people of Maine weigh in on whether or not they want an income tax or not, or what rate they're willing to pay for an income tax, I've decided that every bill that is sponsored by a Democrat will be vetoed. And that means it's got to go back up and get a 2/3 vote. And so if they won't let you have a say in your income tax, we're going to run a 2/3 government.
Mark still here? Mark Fournier?
Yeah. I have a question about if we have businesses that are currently not in Maine, would they be enticed to come to Maine, or would Maine be able to inform them that if we're going to reduce the income tax, would they be interested in coming and make a commitment?
I have a staff, that's all they do. Believe me, we are chasing down. There are magazines out there that try to attract companies from all over the world to different states. I know South Dakota has one right now. We're working with Delta Airlines. If you go on an airline, there's a magazine there in the fall. We're trying to say, come to Maine. We are advertising. We are talking to a lot of companies every day. We have contacts. The problem is, what I keep hearing is the three things. One, is your government is never consistent. Your laws change halfway through the year, and we've already got a budget, so you cause us major headaches. Your energy costs are high, and you've never been very friendly to us. Now, what I mean by that is very simply this. Investment capital will go where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated. When you overtax someone, they don't feel that you're appreciated. That's why a lot of our residents that live their whole lives in Maine get to 65, they got a little nest egg, so they go to Florida or Arizona to protect, or Texas, or New Hampshire. I know some people never left New England. They're in Ossipee or they're in Portsmouth, and they just stay very close to Maine because they love it. I had one gentleman told me, I never left Maine, it left me. I have another gentleman who called me not too long ago. He says, we just bought a nice house down in southern Florida. He said, do you think your budget's going to pass? Because I got to make a decision whether I'm going to be a resident of Florida or stay a resident of Maine. I said, wait till the end of June, and we'll know for sure. My guess is the Democrats have the majority, so we probably won't get it.
This is another comment from Roger Bickford from Lisbon. He says, please stay the course.
Well, I will certainly try. I must say, some days I wake up and I'd like to be in Florida. Especially when my wife's down there in the winter, caring for her mom.
Christine Popovich from Auburn asked, what are your progress, or what has been done to move forward with welfare reform? And how can we help you in regard with DEA agents?
The one thing that you can all help me tonight is either go to the Maine website or take this book and find out who your legislators are and just call. Just tell them you support the governors, get rid of the income tax, you support DEA agents, and you want to fix welfare. You just tell them that. Now, it's like Pepsi Cola. When I was a young kid, I used to deliver Pepsi around the state, and they'd say you have to tell them 5 times before they get it. That's the general public. Legislators, you're going to tell them 10 times.
All right. Well, I think it's just about 7 o'clock, if not a little bit past. So I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. We will be holding more town hall meeting.
You can give a couple more questions.
A couple more? Well, we have one on...
This gentleman's just broken. Maybe big surprise.
Who had the ethanol one? There was one on ethanol. Look at that.
Let me tell you about ethanol, just quickly. There's a big movement in Washington to bring it from 10% to 15%. I'm certainly fighting that. I'm fighting to get ethanol at least out of... I'm trying to at least have the ability to sell ethanol-free gasoline for off-road use, you know, for snowmobiles and four-wheelers and boats and stuff. But it's very, very difficult. We passed a bill a few years ago. It takes 6 states. The way they passed it is we can't do it alone. We have to wait till 5 other states do it, then we can jump in. And it's like pulling teeth. It really is. Because the federal government does not want you to get out of ethanol. And so what they're doing is they're buying their way in. And I'm not very good at taking federal money, so I'm not buying in, but a lot of states are.
This gentleman right here, Richard Neto, is that correct? From Lisbon Falls. He wants to know when we're going to have a C-SPAN 4, have a little bit more transparency in the legislature and be able to see what's going on there.
Well, we're trying. We have MPBN, I believe, is doing this. I don't even know how to call it, but they have it on. I will say this, that right now, Time Warner is back in the process of being sold, and so we may have a major expansion in the whole broadband, and the whole cable, and the whole television. But we do have MPBN who's doing some work in the state government. I can't get the legislature to give me the money because they don't want to be filmed. They don't want to be on TV. So I have to take it out of my contingency fund in order to keep it going. And shortly, who knows, they might take that away. But we're working on it. I'd love to, nothing more than to have everything completely open and transparent, because if we had complete transparency, you would have much better government.
Where's Robert DeWitt?
Last question. I'm getting hungry.
Yes, my thoughts are quite a bit about this income tax going around is there are an awful lot of people that don't pay any income tax, whether they're low wage, and the other is the people that are self-employed not paying it. Now, they do not pay any income tax. They don't care how anybody spends the money. And I was wondering if there's any way that you or your staff could get a number or a handle on that, and to get that out to the people and get them thinking, you know, if you have it's a very unfair tax. It used to be fair, but there's so many people that don't pay it now, that there's only really the middle class or just above the working class that are paying the taxes now.
First of all, if you get rid of the income tax, you would lower the employment force necessary to mayor and serve. A lot of people you wouldn't need as many people very quickly. You'd have sales tax. Sales tax is pretty automated, and the way we plan to do the sales tax, we'll pay a small fee to all the retail shops who collect sales tax. So they're not going to be doing it now. And you're absolutely right. It's about $250 to $300 million a year that we get chipped out of revenues in the income tax. And we got to go chase it. Now, the tax is making thieves and crooks out of our citizens. Let's get rid of the tax. Much harder not to pay the sales tax. Much harder not to pay the property tax. The income tax is very, very easy. In fact, like I said earlier, I caught somebody trying to work under the table, and he owes the state a whole lot of child support, and we're going after him. Thank you all so much.